but they're two proper horses, and there's so many angles to take on how one is going to get the better of the other.
I wouldn't have wrote anything as good as Barry, but I'm sure he'll be able to tell you, when you get into a rhythm around Punchestown, it's like being out in an open field on your own with a horse. It's amazing. May the best horse win.
May the best horse win. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Inside Track Ireland, our Irish racing podcast brought to you by William Hill, the best value bookmaker. And we have so much to discuss this week, Barry, Geraghty and I. Punchestown Festival, the small matter of 12 Grade 1 races across 40 races and 3.6 million in prize money, Barry. So we thought it would be pertinent to bring in two experts in their field. Number one, to keep us honest, and two, to give us their views on what should be a spectacular week. So for this podcast, we bring in Racing TV's Donn McClean. Donn, how do we find you this morning?
Very well, Jade. Thanks. Yeah. What a week in store. And looks like the weather's going to comply as well. So as you say, 12 Grade 1 races, quality throughout the whole week. And yeah, looking forward to getting underway now tomorrow.
We love good weather. It means a lot for our temperament, but also for the fun element. And that will bring in Paddy Flood, former top jockey turned pundit. You will be there. You've had success at the festival, Paddy, yourself. What is it about this week that makes it a little bit unique?
I think it's the feel of Punchestown, and it brings the curtain down on the end of the season. Whether you've had a good season, you're kind of looking to get out through Punchestown and get going into the next. But even if you've had a bad one, it's nice to just, say, right, that's the end and clean slate again. But I think it's a very welcoming track and a beautiful track to ride as well.
Yeah, that and the crowds of people flooding in. I feel like every day has a different genre of crowd that come in. You've got the purists, you've got the families, you've got the people who are just there for the crack. You've got everything at Punchestown. So we'll kick on into it because we have a lot of ground to cover. I want to, for everybody who's listening or watching on YouTube, remember we are recording on Monday morning. So we've decks for Tuesday and Wednesday. So we'll have in-depth conversations about those Grade 1s, but we don't have declarations for later in the week. So we will be doing a kind of a best of the rest for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday cards. William Hill have an epic boost every day of the Punchestown Festival this week. So for each of the 5 days, you can head on over to the William Hill app or on the website. They will have an epic boost each morning of the Punchestown Festival. Barry, I suppose before we get into specific races, there will be a few talking points throughout this festival. The first one being, let's touch on it, Gordon Elliott's currently 150 grand ahead of Willie Mullins. Is it just inevitable that he's booked for second place again?
Actually, you'd love to think for Gordon's sake that it's not going to be that way, but Willie's got into this before. I think he was he 500,000 behind? That's probably about 10 years ago now. And then he beat Gordon by 800,000. So that was 1.3 million turnaround, even though Gordon collected what he collected a week. So it's highly likely to be the case. And we're going to look at the William Hill Championship shortly, where Willie has 4 of the 5 runners. And that's slightly the team then through the week when he's got, the top 2 on the market for the Gold Cup as well on Wednesday. So Willie has, a heavy hand of quality, and I'd say it's going to be impossible for Gordon to keep him at bay.
Is that a fair assessment, Don? Are we just thinking Gordon's had a great season, but now it's Willie's time to shine?
Yeah, I think so. And Gordon's kind of said that as well, Jane, doesn't he? Like 1.5 million. Barry alluded to it there. I for Gordon to win it, and please God, it's going to happen. He needs to be quite a long way ahead of Willie Mullins going into Punchestown. Like I was just looking back through the entries before the 5 days, say before declarations. Willie Mullins had, I think, 86 entries in the Grade 1s. Gordon Elliott had 29. And as Barry said there, like there's even if Gordon wins a Grade 1, Willie probably have the second and third and fourth. So he won't make the ground on him even by winning whatever 170 grand first prize. Willie could have second for 57 grand. And look, I think it's a big ask for Gordon to go and win it, but please God, it'll happen sometime soon.
Yeah, you just got this mental image of, Gordon has the fishing rod and he throws in the fishing rod into the lake to catch the one fish. And here comes Willie Mullins with the trawler with this massive net, and he's just going to get everything else anyway. So that's the Trainers' Championship. Paddy, we've been treated to a really tight affair with the Jockeys' Championship for basically since the turn of Christmas between Townend, O'Keefe and Kennedy. Townend has kind of dropped off the top 2 now. There's currently 6 between Jack and Dara. I'd say with those wins in Kilbeggan the other day, Jack's kind of put his one hand on the trophy, hasn't
I
he?
think he has, Jane. But I suppose what stood out to me from Jack was flying back from Cheltenham to go to Wexford, or was it Aintree to go to Wexford? And lucky enough, he didn't get a fall. He very nearly did get a fall, and it could have ended the whole thing for him. But listen, Jack's top grade, and just to see him complete a season injury free is brilliant. But there's that young man Dara O'Keefe is coming behind him. He's hungry, if you check his stats, he'll ride for anybody, everybody, and it doesn't matter if it's Kilbeggan, Ballinrobe, or where it is. He gives his horses great rides, and he has made it exciting, which is great. It is coming down to the week, but you just feel like Jack has probably more firepower for Punchestown.
I'd have to agree with that, but it's been a real treat. 11 Grade Ones for Jack this season so far, personal best for him, and 3 for Dara O'Keefe, and obviously Townend has basically won every other Grade One. We kick on into the racing for the Punchestown Festival. We will start with the aforementioned William Hill Champion Chase. It's off at 6:05. Barry, you've already referenced the fact that Willie Mullins has all bar one, but that one is Marine Nationale. We went to Barry Connell to meet Marine Nationale, to meet the trainer, to meet William Money. We had a splendid day last week. Could it be that he gets redemption and goes back to back?
I think it could. And interesting that they're putting cheek pieces on him as well. He's those for the first time. Probably no harm. Just help Sean through the middle part of the race. Maybe he got a little outpaced. You'll see in Leopardstown at Christmas, and then he got going again later on. But it was the story of that race was the mistake he made at the second fence, the first away from the stands. He gave away about 10 lengths, but still got back to chase Solness home. He'd Majborough behind him. Then Majborough puts in the massive performance at the Dublin Racing Festival on very soft ground, which wouldn't have necessarily been to Marine Nationale's liking. So Majborough excelled there, but then Majborough went to Cheltenham and his jumping let him down. When he probably wasn't able to dictate the race the way he could naturally on softer ground. And you're probably asking too many questions. I felt on better ground. That would be my concern for Majborough. That naturally, I think he's better suited by a slower surface. Where Marine Nationale, the opposite way, I think he's better suited by the better ground. Etait Temps, then it's probably unfair to say he picked up the pace in the champion chase, but there was a little bit of a pace collapse from the time Majborough missed the third last. The skeleton horse, Luda Sud, he was left upsides in front, and he's a weak finisher. So I think Paul Townend was brilliant on Etait Temps at Cheltenham. It was a good performance, but I do think on better ground, last year's winner Marine Nationale, last year's champion chase winner at the Cheltenham Festival, I think he can get back to winning ways again, Jane.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just a supremely good horse, and I wonder has he ever garnered the credit he deserves. And people can pick holes in his form, but it was the manner in which he did it at Cheltenham last year that impressed me most. Here's a question for you, Don. Considering Willie Mullins has everything bar one in the field, and Majborough is, a horse that likes to run forward but wouldn't want to be pace pressured, is it a case where everybody else just sits back off him and he gets a free lead?
Yeah, look, I think Majborough, if you're going faster than Majborough, you're going too fast. So I think in most races he's going to get a free lead anyway. So no, it is going to be fascinating to see how this plays out, because Majborough cheek pieces on. We saw how good he was at Leopardstown when Mark Walsh just got him into that rhythm, and he jumped and ran and pulverized his rivals really. It didn't happen at Cheltenham. He was probably a bit cleaner than ideal through the early part of the race, and then his jumping just fell apart. He made one little mistake. It was all going well for the first 4 or 5 fences. Then he made that mistake, and then his jumping after that, especially the third last, it just fell apart. But we know the talent that he is. We know the engine that he has, and he's still only a 6-year-old. So if and when he puts it all together, he's a monster. But I think there are those question marks. Barry alluded to the ground as well. That's a bit of a worry. He jumps to his left, so back going right-handed, probably not ideal. And yeah, I agree with you on Marine Nationale. He's a bit of a, not a forgotten horse, but I agree with you, Jen. He probably doesn't get people are kind of looking for reasons why he won't win. But he's 9 years old now, but he's only run 9 times over fences. He's still a lightly raced horse. The fact that he missed Cheltenham, while it was obviously a negative at the time, and it's a shame that he didn't get to go and try and defend his champion chase crown, it's a positive in the context of this race, back at Punchestown. He's 3 for 3 at Punchestown. He loved the ground. I think the fast pace that Majborough will probably set, that'll suit him really well. Sean Flanagan just sit off him, and as Barry said, cheek pieces on for the first time. You can see how that'll help him. I think Sean Flanagan said through the early part of the race just to concentrate better. That'll help him lie up a little bit more easily. And yeah, I can see him running a big race, and yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see him going and winning it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic. Paddy, I know you're a big Majborough fan, and a lot of people will forget, they'll say, oh, he's soft ground reliant or whatever, but he didn't come off the bridle in a novice chase at this meeting last year. Is that going to happen again?
I actually feel it will, Jane, to be honest. Mark Walsh is one of my favourite riders, and I think he's a cracking rider, but I think he got it completely wrong on this fella in Cheltenham. I think he was at the start looking like they know I'm going to lead, so I don't really have to give this lad a squeeze out the gate. And Darragh O'Keefe got a flyer on Calixios, and Mark was just on the back foot. He got caught in the back foot from the start, and he didn't go to plan B. He'd no plan B in his head. Plan A was to go out and go fast, and he'll be fine. But I think there was an opportunity for Mark to actually take a lead in Cheltenham, and he would have jumped better. I think the race ended up being run back to front. I think when he got to the front, he didn't either take him back or he didn't go on and give him squeeze. He kind of said, well, I'm here now. And they made him go quick enough on Calixios to make them mistakes. If I'd say if Mark could have it back again, he would have took that lead. And I don't think he would have got the fright jumping wise as he did, because when he did make the mistake, he was going so fast that he was always going to get a fright with a mistake. So he just over exaggerated then his jumping after it. But I feel like Punchestown, big wide open track, that if something wants to go faster than him, they might let him go faster, but I actually still do think he'll get his own way in front. And with Marine Nationale, with cheek pieces, I think we'll probably end up chasing him. I don't think he's going to give him away ground, and I think that could break Marine Nationale's heart, because Majborough is an absolute airplane when it is. Look, there's a lot of ifs and buts, but I'd forgive him that Cheltenham run. I thought Mark could have done a little bit differently on him.
Fair point. I suppose the only thing that's in the back of my mind is you have to forgive them the Leopardstown run at Christmas as well. It wasn't a one-off. So this is what makes the William Hill Champion Chase such a good, I suppose, conundrum for punters, because you have the reliance of Etait Temps, you have Marine Nationale who missed Cheltenham, and then you've got the enigma that is Majborough. Barry, is there anything else other than the top three that you could see making an impact?
It's hard to make a case for Blood Destiny or an Orgamy at this stage. It was great to see an Orgamy put in the performance he did at Easter. But I think this is a step up in class again. He's a brilliant horse in his day, and he's been a great servant. But no, I think he's out of his depth at this level, at this stage in his career, I think.
Okay, so we're going Barry, Donn, Jane, 3 votes for Marine, and Paddy from the outset, the outlier with Majborough. Is that fair to say?
Spot on.
Well, there we go. That's it in a nutshell. William Hill's Punchestown Champion Chase, the feature on day one. We kick on to the 2 mile champion novices hurdle. El Kairos is back, sober, cocktail brewed, skylight hustle, and a few more that are on retrieval missions, folks. Donn, I'm going to let you have the first stab at this. There was a lot of reputations tarnished at Cheltenham. Who's going to restore theirs here?
Yeah, like the first race at Cheltenham, Supreme Novices Hurdle, how strong are the Irish? Turns out not as strong as we thought. Obviously, the week played out differently in the end. But yeah, the Supreme was a strange race in that the pace held up well. I suppose it was a theme of the week at Cheltenham, but you really had to be forward in the race. Alcaraz was back in the field, and he probably did well to get as close as he got from back in the field. But he's going to have to come forward again from that. It is interesting that Jack Kennedy retains the faith, and both Jack Kennedy and Gordon Elliott, they've never made any secret of the regard in which they hold this horse. He's obviously got a potent turn of foot. He's a classy individual, but he's been put in short. And I think Labo is a big danger to him. He's a little bit under the radar. Joseph O'Brien's horse, he would have beaten Kazansky in his maiden hurdle at Cork on Hillyway Chase Day when he came down at the final flight, and Kazansky went on and won the Grade 2 Doran's Pride hurdle, albeit over a longer trip next time. And then he went to Naas for the King's First hurdle, a Grade 3 race. He was weak in the market before that race. It was only a small field, but he was last of the 5 runners early on. They went a slow pace, and he did well to picking up as well as he did. He got the better of Blake. The pair of them pulled clear. And Blake's a good horse. He was only just beaten in the Royal Bond Hurdle and was given Cocktailbrew a big race again at Ferryhouse when he came down at the last. But the Labo, that was only his third race, and I think he can come forward again. He doesn't have the profile of some of his rivals like Alcaraz or Skylight Hustle, but I think he's an improving horse. His dam's a half sister to Binocular, well-bred horse. The Joseph O'Brien horse is flat and jumps, doesn't matter, they're flying, and the ground will suit him. 2 miles and on kind of yielding ground, that should be ideal for him. And yeah, I can see him shaking up the more high-profile rivals.
I'm just going to reference a couple of Joseph O'Brien's jumpers this year. Talk the Talk, Grade 1 horse. Solness, Grade 1 horse. Home by the Lee, unbelievably good horse. The Labo. Zeus Power, Grade 1 winner. Nürburgring, unfortunately sadly ill-fated, but a very good horse. Banbridge, haven't even been named Banbridge. For a man that only has a handful of them, Paddy, he's had some national home season.
He's had a great season, Jane. It's probably his best season because
didn't even mention Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan's who should have won a national, you know. So, yeah, like I have to agree with Don here on this. Any horse that can break its maiden in a graded race is well above average, and the horse he beat is a good yardstick. There's a lot, and he's open to a lot of improvement. And I mean, Joseph's doing it everywhere. He's, you know, the 2-year-olds are flying as well, and you know, anything he runs now at the minute is they're in top form. So you have to give them all. You have to mark them up a bit while they're running, because the yard is just, you know, they're striking gold with everything. Johnny Gleeson riding the horse as well. He's a top amateur. You know, that's not going to be any disadvantage to the horse. El Kairos, he's never been my favourite horse from day one. I feel like he's pigeonholed the way he has to be ridden, and he has this tendency at the last to miss it. Now, I'd forgive him. The Leopardstown one, Talk to Talk, done the very same thing. You know, they just misstepped at the last. But I wasn't blown away by him in Thurles either. And I suppose the pace held up in the Supreme, to be fair to him. But I thought he was close enough if he was good enough to run a little bit better. I don't think he's going to improve off this Supreme run. And I think Labo he's a type of horse now, I think, that's on the way up. So he's probably the better value at 5-1.
That's interesting perspective. And there's a number of horses here, as you say, well beaten at Cheltenham. They went in with reputations, and now it's a case of go and do it before you'd support them. I think one or two more that fit into that bracket, Barry. Sober is one of those for me, because I was at Royal Ascot last year and I was blown away by what he did on the flat. And he's not a natural jumper, but now that the ground has, I'd imagine it'll be perfectly safe, don't get me wrong, at Punchestown. But it's going to be different to what a lot of our novices were running on through the middle of the winter. The other thing that I would say from the Supreme was the Irish were very dejected. We had nothing in the first 4. And the question mark was, oh, actually, do we not have the talent? Or was it a case of, in the Supreme, they went really slow, it was quick ground, and they quickened away from us? It's a completely different test, surely.
It is a different test, but good horses have a tendency to overcome those issues. And I'd be a little bit with Paddy on El Kairos. You know, he is a horse who promises a lot. He obviously fell in that maiden, was Murat won it, and Dr. Mesnel was second. You know, that's not amazing form. He was going to bolt up, but it's not as exciting maybe as Talk to Talk was going to beat Skylight Hustle when he fell. So I'm just not fully convinced in El Kairos. I'd be with Don and Paddy as well down on Labo. He is the horse who has the potential. So to me, there's holes in lots of these where Labo, he has his own hole in that he fell at the last going to win in Cork, and he unseated at the first on his previous start. So that was his first clear round in Naas. But he looks like a horse who could be progressive. There's just question marks off a lot of these, you know, each to his own. I'm very keen at the Cheltenham Festival. He'd still need to improve on his previous form. Cocktail Brute was a good winner of the Royal Bond back earlier in the season when he beat Blake. That's good form, but he has struggled at times since then. Skylight Hustle ran very keen at Cheltenham. He's got a hood for the first time. He's coming back and trip, but he wouldn't necessarily excite you over 2 mile, I think, in better company. So I'd come back to the Labo just as being the potential one to step forward from this, and I'd say question marks over lots of them.
Yeah, I really like Labo as well. I think there's a very strong case to be made for him. The other horse that I'm going to give another chance to is Sober. I think Barry and I were very strong on Sober going into the Cheltenham Festival, and I maybe just see maybe it could happen today or on Tuesday, Barry?
I had him more as a Turner's horse, and is he not going to the Turners because Willie is so well represented there with He's on Fire and King Rascal Grey? He didn't jump well enough in Cheltenham, but I would have had him. I thought over further he would have a chance of jumping better, just going slightly slower. So, he is a good horse, but I'd be afraid from that things are going to happen a bit quick from over 2 miles for his jumping.
Fair enough, fair enough. We move on to the 3 Mile 1 Dooley Insurance Group Champion Novices Chase. This is the real test of the Brown Advisory form and the Willow Warm Gold Cup form. We've got Kitzbuhel in as favourite, Predators Gold, Capage Pike, Oscar's brother, Lovely Hurling. Can he break his maiden in a Grade 1 like Farinelli did it a couple of years ago? Fleur in the Park was a winner at Fairyhouse, Western Fold, July Flower. Now, what do you think? And Spanish Harlem back from pulling up in the Grand National. Paddy, these are, we won't call them slow horses, but they stay very well.
They do stay very well. And the one that's kind of standing out to me, the horse that won in Fairyhouse, is Fleur in the Park for the Slatterys. And surprisingly enough, their first Grade 1 over hurdles, I would have lost money on that because they've a seriously good outfit down there in Tipperary. And young King Cork getting his first Grade 1 as well. It was a brilliant day. But I think this horse has a lot of upside. He's only a 7-year-old. It comes across to me like a horse would actually want better ground. And around 9-1, I think he is. I think he's good value there at that price. Look, Kitzbuhel was brilliant in Cheltenham, and Harry Cobden was very good on him in Cheltenham as well. He is a very high-class horse. When he gets out there and gets into a rhythm, he's very hard to peg back, but we did see when Paul tried to hold on to him one day that there was a mistake in him, and he came down. He has a tendency to jump a touch right as well, so it shouldn't hinder him around Punchestown. He's had a long campaign, he's been around all year. He's been in every dogfight, and just for me, that Fleur in the Park, just liked his attitude the last year. A lot of hustle, a lot of bustle in the race, and he was the one that was able to jump around, get around and go and win easy, and plenty of upside in him. And I think Punchestown, the track itself, a beautiful big chasing track, will definitely suit this guy. Kitzbuhel will be very hard to beat, but look, he's 9-1. He could be a decent each way bet play.
He's one of those horses that if he were in a bigger yard, he'd certainly be a shorter price. And if anybody's wondering whether or not he'll stay, he actually ran a very good race in the 3 Mile Novice Hurdle here at the Punchestown Festival last year behind Yasmin DeVoe and Honesty Policy. So there's no reason to say he won't stay the distance. Barry, I thought Predators Gold was running a good race in the Willow Warm when he came down under Paul Townend. Obviously, having a quick turnaround isn't ideal, but he's currently second favourite, and I'd say the step up to 3 miles will enhance him.
No, I'd agree with that, and it was a good run. He's obviously there with Capture Pike and Fleur in the Park. But I just feel Kitzbuhel going right-handed is a plus for me. Harry Cobden was brilliant on him to keep him jumping as straight as he could at Cheltenham because he was constantly going out to his right. And from late on, Paul Townend was sniffing to try and get that gap on the inside and to get inside Kitzbuhel, which would have annoyed him twice as much. But Harry did really well. So if anything, he was inconvenienced by going left-handed around Cheltenham. So to me, it's a big positive to have him going right-handed around Punchestown. He can jump out, make the run, and I think he can dictate it enough too because he has the class as well. So Paul will be happy to slow it down on him, but a reproduction of what he did at Cheltenham or what he did in the Cotto Star in Kempton at Christmas, I think is going to make him very hard to beat. So I'd be a big Kitzbuhel fan. I'd have respect for the Fairyhouse form, but there was a lot of horses in the picture in Fairyhouse, and if you're going to have a really good one, he needs to stand out. And it was a good performance from Fleur in the Park. I think he can build on it over further. You could say the same for Predators Gold, but Japa the Pike, I'm just not fully convinced that they're all that good, if you like, where I think Kitzbuhel just could be that, that step or gear better than the rest.
Yeah, you're trying to ask yourself, who's the next Gold Cup horse? And you're thinking, could it be that one or could it be that one? And Kitzbuhel is probably the obvious one that's standing out to a lot of people. Don, there's a pair of JP McManus horses in there that I think are quite interesting. I'm a little bit surprised Oscar's brother is back after unseating at the chair in the Grand National. And I am very surprised Lovely Hurling is running over 3 miles. Can you make a case for either?
Yeah, for me, it's a brilliant race, Jane. It's one of the highlights of the whole meeting, and it often is the kind of staying chasers grade one, staying novice chasers grade one. Yeah, Oscar's brother, it's a pity, unseated at the chair in the Grand National, he was travelling well at the time. We'll never know how he would have fared. And lovely hurling, yeah, and maiden, as you said earlier on. He's only had 3 runs over fences, so sure that like he's got a mark of 145. But I'm sure the thinking is if he's going to break his maiden, let him go and do it in a grade one. But if he doesn't win it, then he's still a novice for next season. So yeah, wouldn't disagree with you. Both really interesting runners. Kitzbuhel, I like Barry. I'm a big fan of his. When he won the Cotto Star Chase, I was thinking, and most people were, go our King George next year, back at Kempton, going right-handed. For me, we learned more about him in the Brown Advisory Chase. He was really good, despite jumping to his right. And despite being challenged by Final Demand on his inside, as Barry said, up the run in, if you're just watching the race again, he's actually going away again on the run to the line. And watching the race live, I was fully sure Final Demand would get the better of him and then outstay him up the hill. But he proved that he could be a Cheltenham horse as well, or that he is a Cheltenham horse. He's only 6 as well, so lots and lots of potential upside to him. The one worry is that, it's coming out to Punchestown after a hard race at Cheltenham, and as Paddy said, he's had 4 runs this season. He made his debut this season back in November at the Punchestown meeting in November. So that's just in the back of your mind when you're looking at a short priced horse. But to me, he's the most likely winner. He's the correct favourite. I do like Fleur in the Park as well. What a day they had, the Slatterys and Keane Quirk as well. They're his first grade winner for the owners too, for Margaret and Porrick O'Rourke to have their first grade one winner. And he showed a really good turn of foot. He jumped the second last fence in the Willow Warm Gold Cup in 6th place. He was in front by the time they got to the last, and he and Predator's Gold, they made their ground, and around him at the same time. He was on the inside, Predator's Gold on the outside. Predator's Gold came down. We don't know how he would have fared, but Fleur in the Park went on and won by nearly 3 lengths, and Predator's Gold is a much shorter price than he is. Maybe the distance is a bit of a worry for Fleur in the Park. And as you said, Jane, he finished third in the grade 1 3-mile novices hurdle at the meeting last year behind Jasmine DeVoe and Honesty Policy. That's good form. He didn't finish off his race strongly. He kind of weakened from the final flight, so it's still a little bit of a worry in the back of my mind now. He's a year older now. The better ground will help him. I'm sure they'll ride him exactly the same here. King Quirk will bury him in behind and ride him patiently and deliver him late. And he's a really interesting runner. As Paddy said, at around 9 or 10 to 1. To me, that's too big. He should be much closer to Predator's Gold in the market than he is. But yeah, I think Kitzbuhel is the correct favourite and the most likely winner.
So very strong votes for Kitzbuhel, with a very honourable mention at the value price, that is Fleur in the Park, for the 3-mile novice chase at $4.40 on day 1. 3 grade 1s dealt with. Any other business for day 1 before we kick on to day 2, guys? There's some very good open races. I thought Fountain House was the obvious one at the beginning of the card. That lovely Ladies' Cup, as they call it, to set the tone for the rest of the season. The rest of the week. But there's some very competitive handicaps. Is there anything you would like to mention before we move along?
I have a little horse there. I set on a couple of days ago a horse called Sierra Scope in the Goffs bumper. I'm not sure what price it is, if it's 10s or 15 to 1, but really nice type. Mightn't be fully wound for it, but has definitely got a lot of ability, and hopefully he can take the day out well. If he takes the preliminaries well and the day out, get a look at him in the ring. He's a really nice type.
So that's Sierra Scope. Rob James rides for Henry de Bromhead in the Land Rover bumper. That is a race where we have very little collateral form to go on, so it's very good that we have a little bit of insight from somebody who's actually sat on him at home. Don, is there anything you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I thought Put a Pan in the Jar was interesting in the Killashee Hotel handicap hurdle. Tony Martin's horse, he won at this meeting last year. He didn't run badly in the Greatwood Hurdle at the Cheltenham November meeting, actually, earlier in the year, back obviously in November. And then last time, just a couple of weeks ago, he won on the flat at Bellewstown. It was a nice performance. He kept on well, got the better of Superficial, and the horse who was back in third, horse Joseph O'Brien's called Obscenity, was impressive in winning on the flat at Navan there on Saturday. He backed down to a mark of 124, but in the jar he was 117 when he won last year, and the first 2 finished nicely clear of the rivals last year. He's £7 higher, but I'm sure Tony Martin has had this race in mind for him again. The fact that he's proven that Punchestown's a positive. Obviously, the ground will be ideal for him. And Sean Bowen's been booked again. He rode him to win the race last year, and he rode him in the Greatwood Hurdle as well. So the fact that Sean Bowen is back on board, that's significant too. So yeah, I can see him going well, and it's a really competitive race, but I can see him going well.
Put a pound in the jar in the 340 for Donn and Barry.
Yeah, I thought Powerful in the Albert Bartlett, stepping back up and trip. He was beating 16 lengths in the good handicap and Furious over 2 mile. And that was up in class. So I think he's taking a step back in grade and up and trip. So he's a winner of Punchestown over 2.5. This is 2.4. Track suits him. He's 2 from 2 over Punchestown, around Punchestown previously, and has form on drying ground. So I thought Powerful could get back involved in a down a grade, we'll say, from where he was the last day.
Okay, so that's day one wrapped in a nutshell. Your best bet for the Tuesday. I'm going to guess, Paddy, yours is Majborough.
It sure is, Jane. Yeah.
And the rest of us might be Marine.
And I'm going Kitzbuhel, Jen.
Oh, Kitzbuhel, Paddy. Oh, sorry, Barry. And Don.
And I'll go
Labo in the Novices Hurdle. Okay, let's kick on into day 2 of the Punchestown Festival, because I realise we have to cover a lot of ground. But before we do that, if you're looking forward to the Irish racing this weekend, then don't forget that William Hill have a bet 10, get 5 offer. It's as simple as it sounds. You simply bet €10 on any race this week and you get a €5 free bet for the weekend's racing. So the feature race on day 2 is, of course, the Punchestown Gold Cup. It's a race that has legacy, it's got tradition, and it is the highlight of the week for many people. And it looks like, Barry, it's the rematch that we had in the John Durkan. It's Gaelic Warrior versus Factophile, plus a few more, but they're the two that matter, surely.
Absolutely, yeah, and you're taking the Dublin Racing Festival as well, where they filled the 1-2 there. But go back to the John Durkan, Gaelic Warrior blitzed the field away from the stands. He was 100 yards clear down the back straight. Looked a bit empty, jumping the last in the back straight. Factophile closed up then. Looked like Factophile was going to come through to win. Then he got tired and Gaelic Warrior outstayed him. Then they went to Dublin Racing Festival. They both went to Kempton at Christmas, and I think the ground was too quick for both horses. But they came back to Dublin Racing Festival. Gaelic Warrior ran keen. Again, jumping to his right probably didn't help him there. He didn't get the cover in Cheltenham or in Leopardstown that he did get in Cheltenham. So there was a big difference there. But they're two proper horses, and there's so many angles to take on how one is going to get the better of the other. There's nowhere to hide, obviously. I don't think there's any excuse for either horse with trip or going right-handed. I think it's going to suit Gaelic Warrior well. It won't inconvenience Factophile, but they're two proper horses, and we saw what Gaelic Warrior did in the Gold Cup. It was a brilliant performance, but I think he's going to even have more on his plate here. I think he's going to have a bigger job to beat Factophile. I think you'll see a better version of Factophile than you saw in the John Durkan. I think his horse would have improved a lot for his first run. So it's a tricky one. I would slightly favour Factophile to follow Gaelic Warrior around and just have that bit of class to do him. But I don't see it being a major winning distance. But there are two proper superstars having clashing.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, Paddy, right? People will say, there's only 5 in here. Only, I know the way you're thinking isn't from Closutton. But what really matters is the horses that you want clashing. And they're the best 2 in the division. They're arguably the best 2 in training.
Yeah, if it was just the 2 of them, it would get me excited, Jane, to be honest with you. Look, I'm not a punting man, but I do love looking and watching good horses. I've rode a few nice ones around Punchestown, and that chase track around there is just magnificent. And I wouldn't have rode anything as good as Barry, but I'm sure he'll be able to tell you, when you get into a rhythm around Punchestown, it's like being out in an open field on your own with a horse. It's an amazing feeling. I'm probably Factophile's biggest fan. I still think he's a Gold Cup horse. I still hold hope, but the only thing that gets me is Gaelic Warrior around Punchestown. He's unbeaten around there. He's hard as nails. And I thought, for all money, Factophile should have beat him in the John Durkan. And I couldn't believe that Gaelic Warrior was able to stay going that pace, come and go again at the back of the last after, Factophile actually headed him between the second last and the last. And you thought he was just going to go away and win his race. But then we did see Factophile race beautifully in Leopardstown for the first time probably ever that he was put into a race properly, competitively, and he was able to handle it then. So mentally he's getting there. I'm just siding with Factophile, just just barely, and
You're
I'm
staying
staying
loyal.
loyal, but I can see it, two horses upsides at the last, and whoever, is going to grit it out will grit it out more. And look, Track to File is just that touch fresher. I know Gaelic Warrior won a Gold Cup easy, but a Gold Cup takes a bit out of a horse, and Track to File's coming there fresh, and he's smashing horse, smashing jumper, and I think Punchestown suits both of them. So it should be a real mouth-watering sort of two-horse race, basically. I don't think the rest are going to look. They'll be in a bunch there till halfway down the back, and the boys will turn the screw from there, and may the best horse win.
May the best horse win. Don, that puts it in a nutshell for you to tell me who wins.
I don't know. It's a cracker. The lads have covered it. It's what a race. And these two, they've served it up before. Like the John Durkin chase this season, it's a long time ago now, or it feels like a long time ago, but it was one of the races of the season. Like, what a race between the two of them. They pulled miles clear of good horses in behind. And then what Gaelic Warrior did in the Gold Cup, the Cheltenham Gold Cup, again, I thought he took a step forward. Paul Tannen was brilliant at him. Didn't settle him in behind initially, got him going forward, and then settled him when Eddie Killor came up in his outside and settled him at what was a sedate pace. In the end, finished a bit of 108%. But the way that he just sat until after the second last, and just like Paddy was saying, you can't win a Gold Cup and not have a hard race, but he had as easy a race as you can possibly have in winning a Gold Cup. And Fact to File missed Cheltenham, obviously hasn't run since the Dublin Racing Festival when he was brilliant in beating Gaelic Warrior. It's just, it's 2-2 between the two of them in the private duel. It's impossible to call. I know the way you're thinking is an intriguing kind of third element to the race, because if he put up his Gold Cup winning performance, then that would bring him right into it, obviously. And I thought he did well to get finished third in the Cheltenham Gold Cup, having done plenty wrong through the early part of the race, but he doesn't have a great record at Punchestown as the other two do. And it's not a betting race for me, Jane. It's a race to watch and savour, and just dying to see how it pans out.
Yeah, but you're going to have to give us a horse. Like we have to get you off the fence.
Of the two, Gaelic Warrior by a nose.
Okay, so Don's a Gaelic Warrior fan. I'm going to say Fact to File. Paddy's saying Fact to File. Barry?
Yeah, no, I would Fact to File as well, Jane.
Okay, there we go. Let's see. That's a fabulous renewal of the Punchestown Gold Cup. People can say what they want about it, but it has shades of Dawn Run versus Buckhouse. It's got a real good feel to it. The 405 is the 3 mile novices hurdle. Don, the Passing Wife, Fruit de Mer. There's Albert Bartlett form. There's Dr. Steinberg if he settles. There's Zanouche de Mer from Fairy House. It's a big field. It's actually quite a good race.
Yeah, it's a really good race, Jane. There wasn't much between the Passing Wife and Fruit de Mer and the Albert Bartlett hurdle. I thought Fruit de Mer did well. He travelled best down to the final flight. He had to make his ground on the far side. There was no room on the stands rail. The Passing Wife went on and looked like he might go and win it, but Fruit de Mer challenged on the far side, probably on the worst of the ground. They were both in the end done by Johnny's jury, but Fruit de Mer thought he showed a good attitude to stay on and get the better of the Passing Wife. He's a lightly raced horse as well. That was only his third run. I've heard the Passing Wife was run 6 times. He's only 6. And I can, again, the Albert Bartlett hurdle, it's a tough race, and they both had tough races there. So it's a case of hopefully they're both going to be able to put up the performance that you'd expect them to put up, and possibly even improve from, because the Fruit de Mer in particular, he's really lightly raced. Like he didn't run before Cheltenham since he finished third behind I'll Sort That in the Grade 1 Ballymore hurdle at Naas. So I think Fruit de Mer is probably the most, he definitely deserves to be high in the market for it. The Passing Wives of Danger, Zanouche is an intriguing entry here. She had 4 entries. Like, she's just been one of the stories of the season. She was 112 rated when she won her maiden hurdle back in the early part of the season, and she just keeps on improving. She won a Grade 1 race last time over 2.5 miles, but she won the Shannon Spray hurdle at Limerick during Cheltenham week over 2 miles and 7. She stayed on well to win that day, so it's not surprising that she's coming on here for another Grade 1, and she obviously gets the mare's allowance as well. She's getting £7 from the geldings, so if she can put up the performance that she put up at Fairyhouse, that brings her right into it. But I think Fruit de Mer is deserving of his place at the top of the market.
Oh, you're in Henry de Bromhead's, Paddy. Can you give us a positive update on Fruit de Mer?
I can, yeah. No, he's in very, very good nick. Came out with Cheltenham really well. I was seen him cantering away there this morning. His skin looks healthy, everything is good. So, yeah, I'd second what Don said. I think he came up the worst part of the ground in Cheltenham. I felt like if he had the rail, he's that sort of horse. He is still a touch green, and if he had the rail, I think he would have been very close in Cheltenham. So, if you take it that way, I think for me he is probably the safest bet in here. But like Dr. Steinberg, what's he going to do? Is he going to pull the house down, or is he going to switch off at any stage, or what the hell is he going to do? He's a hard horse to kind of to put your money on, because he is very, very headstrong. Passing Wife is solid. This is a brilliant race. Like even Zanouche, I think, Colin Murphy to get a good mare again. We all kind of remember Vola Levedette. She was a cracking mare, and he doesn't overface the mares. He lets them come to their own ability, and then if they keep improving, they keep improving. And 9 times out of 10 they do. But it's for me, it's great to see Colin Murphy back in the picture on Grade 1 races, because I'm not sure why he packed it in years ago, but it wasn't from the lack of talent. It was, whether it was money or anything. Barry will tell you, Big Zeb and the Brave Inca, them sort of horses. So when Colin throws one into a Grade 1, you have to respect it. But I think Fruit de Mer is probably the solid bet here.
Two solid votes for Fruit de Mer. Barry, this is it's intriguing. The mare, I think, getting the £7 with the rating that she has. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jane. I think she could be the value. She's stepping forward. She's after win her last 5 starts over hurdles. Stayed on really well to be Punchestown Nation. The last time at Fairyhouse, I think stepping up and trip is going to suit her. Don mentioned she had 4 options, so she had 4 entries for different races. This is the one they've chosen. I'm not surprised they've gone here. I think it's an open race. It's probably a winnable race. The Passing Wife had a good run in the Royal Bond early in the season. He travelled really well in the Albert Bartlett. Dr. Steinberg obviously over-raced. He's a hood for the first time, but it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Once a horse gets keen as he's been now, it's very hard to get him just to switch off, even with the hood. So he's going to be a handful. Fruit de Mer ran a brilliant race at Cheltenham. I'd agree with the lads that went around on the worst of the ground as well. So, has a little bit to overcome there, so there's potential for improvement in that. Did look a little bit green as well, but for me, Zanouche, having not been to Cheltenham, hasn't had that tough time. I know she ran in Fairyhouse, which isn't as long ago as Cheltenham, but she didn't have to travel away. I think she's coming here fresh, and her season has been building towards this. So I think she could be the value in what looks an open race, really.
I agree with that. So two very strong votes for Fruit Mare and the Mare for Barry and Jane. We kick on into the bumper. The champion bumper needs the champion bumper winner, Barry. We've got the Mourne Rambler, Love Sign Danu, the Irish Avatar. But interestingly, Patrick Mullins is usually the person we all follow, and he kind of forms the market. And his choice is Boys Town, a horse that barely came off the bridle on his only start at Gorn Park.
Yeah, it's tricky enough to weigh up, as the bumper always is, but what the Mourne Rambler did at Cheltenham was really impressive. And when a good gallop, he found himself dropped in, I'd say, further than ideal, really, but got his way through the race. Colin Keane was obviously on board that day, but found his way through no problem, and a good solid winner. Like, there was lots of horses who went there, Love Sign the New, and those that didn't turn up, the Irish Avatar. So, you don't know what's come out of Cheltenham, but one thing, this horse, if anyone saw the footage of him lying in the stable as Noel Meade's travelling head last, Emma was platinum. So he's that relaxed that he was lying down while she's platinum for the bumper. So he's a very chilled out character. So Cheltenham won't have taken as much out of him. And likewise, the build-up in Punchestown won't take as much out of him either. But on his performance, that to me was the best performance of the year in a bumper. And I think he's highly likely to reproduce that, having come through all the fanfare that is Cheltenham, and there will be Punchestown. He'll have come through that well as well. So I think he sets the standard and is the one to beat.
I agree with all of the above. Paddy, surely if he reproduces that form, he's going to be the one they have to stop.
100%. Noel's horse are flying. It's great to see him kind of back more jump scene as well, because he's predominantly flat now, I think, but his record jumping this year ain't too bad, with the same sort of owners. But he was very, very good in Cheltenham. And like Barry said, if you see the shots of him there, he looks a real laid back horse, and he didn't give Colin Keane an ounce of trouble going around Cheltenham. You know, it was very, very straightforward. When he was in the bunch, he was happy enough to be in the bunch. And when he got down to sprint away, he did it. He got down and got gritty and hit the line well. So yeah, I'd have to agree. He'd be my sort of, yeah. I think he's around 2-1. So that's he's a worthy favourite for that.
Don, agree or disagree?
No, I agree. Like you like thing with the bumper, there's not a whole lot of evidence to go on, and that's a very strong piece of evidence what the Morn Rambler did and how he did it. Super ride by Colin Keane as well. The two horses who've run from the Cheltenham bumper at Aintree, Bass Hunter and Chicker, they were disappointed. They were both well beaten, so that's just in the back of your mind. But I'm sure Bass Hunter didn't run his race at Aintree, but look, he couldn't have been much more impressive the Morn Rambler than he was, and he was good as well in winning his bumper at Leopardstown over Christmas. So yeah, I don't know what way they're betting on it yet, or if they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was a short enough price favourite. I thought Low Kick of the others was the most interesting. Gordon Elliott's horse. He was really good in winning at Navan on heavy ground, much different ground to the ground he's going to encounter on Wednesday. But he ran well on better ground at Aintree back in May when he was with Jack Teal. And if he can reproduce and come forward from his run at Naas the last day, then he could be a threat. Harry Swan rides him as well. So maybe he's the main threat to the Morn Rambler.
Fair enough. That's the bumper in a nutshell. Any other business on day 2? I want to give a mention to King Alexander, who contests the Colm Quinn handicap chase at 5:25. That's the 2.5 mile handicap chase. I just think the race that Meet Me by the Sea won at Cheltenham is really working out, given how it looked at Aintree with Regent Stroll and Townend's horse Gold Dancer. The sadly inflated Gold Dancer. They were second and third. This guy was fourth. Townend's picking him, I think, in the handicap chase. King Alexander will be difficult to beat. Anybody else?
I thought in the Louis Fitzgerald, the 340 on Wednesday, Belgorod Man, Gavin Cromwell runs. He was second in the maiden to Kilgame in Navan last time. Had some good place performing bumpers prior to that, but he's in here without a penalty, having not won a maiden. So I thought was one who could build and do well here.
The Louis Fitzgerald, which horse again? Begora Man.
Begora Man. Yeah,
Begora Man 6. For Barry.
I will.
Don.
Sorry, Don.
Oh, Paddy.
Just in the same race as yours, Jane. Sorry, but Kilberry Saint there 10-2, and Paddy O'Brien taking 5 off her back. A young man flying, having a great season. So she's a mare. She's probably destined for the breeding barn soon enough, but she has black type already. But she loved the ground and she jumps really well. So I just think she's nicely in off 10-2 and £5 as well off her backs. You know, she's going around with nothing on her back really.
Kilberry Saint running loose in the 5:25.
And for me, Victoria PL, I'm not sure what price is going to be again in the Connolly's Red Mills final. Just thought he was outstayed by Set Etoile last time at Ferryhouse. He won. He was really impressive winning a bumper at the Punchestown Festival last year when he beat It's Only a Game. And he was impressive too in winning at Leopardstown when he beat Grade Jude. He's got a mark of 131. He's probably going to be meeting horses that are not as well in as he is, and dropping back down to 2 miles, 3.5 furlongs from 3 miles the last day. I think that's going to be a help.
It's Vittorio PL in the 3:05 for Emmett Mullins. And that's Wednesday in a nutshell, folks. We've covered comprehensive ground for the first 2 days, and we have to bid farewell to Paddy Flood because he's a 2 miler, not a 3 miler. He doesn't have the stamina to see out all week. You were busy doing other things, Paddy, but thank you for coming on the show. We hope to have you again.
Very pleased to be on, guys. Thanks for having me.
And now it's time to pick up on the Thursday. We don't have declarations. We are doing a little bit of guessing, but we'll do our best. We'll start with the 2 mile novices chase, Grade 1. It looks like it's the rematch between Cargazy and Kopek de Board. The first 2 home in the Arkle chase, Barry. Throw in a couple more like Irish Panther, Jacob's Ladder. I know my dad, I think, is going to declare Pure Steel for the race. Having pulled hard in the Will of Warm Gold Cup, I'd say he'll be on his head going to the first in this. It looks like a fabulous renewal.
Yeah, definitely, and there is lots of depth to it. But, you know, I think Kopek the Boards, he wasn't a lucky loser at the Cheltenham Festival in the Arkle. Came down to the last looking like a winner. Paul just took it up going to the last, and the horse got in a bit tight, nodded on landing, lost momentum, got a bit tired. I think if he had delayed his challenge, and if he'd have been better off a head down rather than a head up, I think he could have jumped the last better. in that position, and I think would have been a good winner otherwise. That was his first run since November as well. So, you know, he will surely have improved for that run. He'll have improved the experience because he went to the sky over the first couple of events. So I could see a very much more professional version of Kopek the board, and I think he's a solid favourite and the one they'll all have to beat. Respect for the rest of the field, but I think he's just very, very good.
I think that's a diplomatic way of saying he's an absolute machine, and God bless the rest of them. I completely concur with that. I'm really looking forward to seeing him because obviously the tumultuous preparation he had for Cheltenham just wasn't ideal. They'll be going a little bit slower at 6:05, Don, in the Stairs Champion Hurdle. Teahupoo, Bob Ollinger, Honesty Policy, Jimmy DeSoy, Jay DeGrugy, probably going to have a decent sized field here, but Gordon Elliott holds the cards here.
He does, yeah. And Teahupoo, like what a performer, what a stalwart he is. He's 9 years old now. He's won twice here. And yeah, like he proved last year that yielding ground was fine for him. He's probably still a better horse on softer ground, but he proved that he could operate on yielding ground. Maybe underperformed at Cheltenham the last day, but he was beaten by Bob Ollinger at Cheltenham last year as well and came on here and won this. So I think he's the right favourite. Bob Ollinger's probably going to take his chance again. And Honesty Policy, he's been to Cheltenham and to Aintree, probably a little bit unlucky at Aintree not to be closer to home by the Lee, but ran his race and he's still only 6, so there's still time for him. Yeah, I was struggling to find an angle into this race, Jane. If there is one, it might be Cowabunga, Willie Mullins' horse. I thought he ran well the last day against Slade Steele. Now, he kind of led early on and Slade Steele passed him, but he was coming back again at Slade Steele on the run to the line. Maybe Slade Steele was maybe idling in front, but definitely he went to the line strongly over 2.5 miles. A step up and trip could see him improve. He beat William Money in a maiden hurdle at Fairyhouse back in January last year. So if there's one to upset the established staying brigade in this race, maybe it's Cowabunga.
Maybe Cowabunga. All right. Okay. Well, in that division, it's not unusual to have a little bit of a shock. Let's see if Teahupoo or Bob Ollinger can get their head in front again. We kick on into the Grade 1 Novices Hurdle on the Friday. This is the 2.5 race. And I don't think He's on Fire is going to go here. I think King Rascal Grey is the one that's going to run. Ballyfad, Dr. Steinberg, Sir Tudo, Laureate d'Estraval, Kylie's Place, Saint Bacco, U Proof. I keep going because they're all Willie Mullins's, bar Ballyfad, and they're all top of the market. Barry, have a stab at that.
Well, being honest, I don't see why you need to look past King Rascal Grey. What he did at Cheltenham, he was so solid. He improved a lot from his run at the Dublin Racing Festival. I don't see any reason why anything is going to turn the table with him. I thought it was a performance that he could even build on again. So obviously his bumper form has worked out well from last season with Soldier Milan too. So I think he's got all form angles covered. But no, he to me would be the one to beat and probably hard to beat.
Fair enough. Don, anything to add on that?
No, I fully agree with that. And I think more than that, the Turner's Hurdle from this season, it's going to have reverberations all through next season. Like the Bossman Jack, who made a mistake at the last, he won the Mersey Hurdle next time, beating Soldier Reeves and Ballyfad into 2nd and 3rd, and they were down the field, in the Turners. Zeus Power finished 3rd. He won the Sefton Hurdle. Even Hurricane Pat, who was down the field, won at a short price at Chepstow next time. No Drama This End, won a listed race at Perth next time. So that already the form of that Turner's race is looking really, really strong. And King Rascal Grey, he was really weak in the market beforehand, but he was the winner on merit. And yeah, fully agree with Barry. He's going to set a high standard here.
King Rascal Grey to reign supreme in the 2.5 mile, the intermediate division of the novice hurdlers. And then we bring us into the champion hurdle. The Punchestown champion hurdle is off at 3:40, and that is Lossiemouth, William Money, Brighter Days Ahead. Will Golden Ace go here? Will Poneros line up? Anzadam, the enigma that is Anzadam. Don, is it a case of the mare just turns up, or is there something going to keep her honest?
No, I think that's it. Just turns up. She was so good in the champion hurdle at Cheltenham. I'm looking forward to seeing William Money again. It's such a shame that he's missed most of the season, but good that he's going to run here, all going well. And just, I know you were down with Barry. Just the vibe I was kind of getting from reading what he was saying was that he kind of thinks that he hasn't just got him a concert pitch. I think a concert pitch William Money would be a real rival for Lossiemouth. But it's a massive training performance. He hasn't run since Cheltenham last year, so more than a year ago. So I'm looking forward to seeing him again. But no, it's Lossiemouth's to lose.
I think that's a fair enough assessment, Barry, because listening to Barry Connell, he was thinking I want to get him out. I'd like to get him the experience that will benefit him next year. It would take a monstrous performance to beat the mare, having not run this year.
It would, definitely would. But he put up a big performance in the Supreme. And we mentioned El Kairos earlier on, coming from off, or not being able to come from off the pace in Cheltenham. This fella did come from off the pace when he was dropped in the Supreme and finished a good closing second behind Kopek de Board. So that's as good of novice form as you'll ever get. But to take on a mare like that who is hardened, the only angle is who's the pace. If Brighter Days Ahead doesn't go, haven't been to Aintree, maybe Poneros or something will go forward, but I'm not even sure. So I don't think it'll be set at a stronger pace potentially as the champion hurdle was, which would suit Lossiemouth. She wants a stronger pace. I think she could be more vulnerable to a horse with William Money's pace if they didn't go as quick. So that's the only angle I could see him having a crack at her. She'd be very hard to beat, but that might be the way he could find a chance of having a go at her.
Yeah, my head is telling me that Willie Mullins will have something in there to make the pace, but that'll be when we have declarations, we'll see that. Then we kick on into the Saturday, and that is the Mayor's Champion Hurdle. That is the 405. Woodoo is a very strong price favourite at the moment, ahead of Jade de Grugy. Again, we're going to repeat ourselves here with possibly Golden Ace. Lossiemouth won't run here. Brighter Days Ahead probably won't run here. And Air of Entitlement. This is going to end up being a small field, Barry.
Yeah, but Woodoo, to her credit, she just keeps turning up and she keeps winning. And her only defeat has come to the hands of Lossiemouth in Aintree last season. So she's a very good mare. I suppose Jade de Grugy, to give her credit, wasn't beaten far at Cheltenham last time, and she's coming from chasing to hurdling, so there's potential that her jumping could be slicker. She was a little untidy early on in Cheltenham. So it makes her more of a threat, but Woodoo just always seems to have a habit of just winning and only winning by as far as she needs to. So, I think we have to give her the respect, and she's going to take beating, but Jade de Grugy could be the one who'd give her most to think about.
Yeah, I think Woodoo's just a winning machine. She's been very well placed, but she's just a very good mare. And then we go into the champion 4-year-old race sponsored by Ballymore at 4:55. It's basically the Triumph Part 2, Don. There's a couple of horses that didn't quite make Cheltenham that are in the market at the moment, featuring Feel Good. There's a horse over there from France, Matin Midi et Soir, but I don't know if he's going to run. Apollon de Charmy is currently favourite. The Fred Winter winner, Saratoga, is in third favourite. Proactive, who won at Fairy House. I suppose we start with the winner, don't we?
We do, yeah. And we didn't know much about him beforehand. We know a little bit more about him now, but he won really impressively. Like even watching the race back, he was the most likely winner from a long way out, and he picked up well, and maybe even idled on the run in. And so it was only a second run over hurdles, and his first run for Willie Mullins. So, and he was a 50 to 1 shot. Look, he was very, very good. Maestro Conti and Manella Suddy were both beaten by Monge 2 next time at Aintree. So I'm not sure that they ran their races really in the Grade 1 4-year-olds hurdle at Aintree, but Apollon de Charmy was very good in beating them. So yeah, look, he sets the standard. Yeah, you mentioned Feel Good for Nicky Henderson, and Murray Donnelly be good if he comes over. He won well at Worcester back in January, and the third horse came out and won well at Taunton next time. So be interesting. He's only had 2 runs over hurdles, only 1 for Nicky Henderson, so he'll be interesting. And Saratoga, the Fred Winter Hurdle winner, yeah, Jeff Kidder came on here after winning the Fred Winter Hurdle back in 2021, I think, and won this. So it's doable. Saratoga was very weak in the market before the Fred Winter, and he won well. So he'd be interesting as a kind of a away from the Triumph Hurdle form coming in here. But yeah, Apollon de Charny, yeah, he's probably going to be a short price favourite.
Barry?
Yeah, no, I'd echo what Don says. But the Charmaine is the one to beat. Feel Good, I suppose, slightly unknown, and Saratoga has the potential to build on what he's done. It was a good step up on his previous form to put in the performance he did in a quality race at the festival in the Fred Winter. So he has potential to build on that again.
Okay, well, that is it in a nutshell. We've rattled through the last couple of days of the Punchestown Festival. So now it's time to hit our naps. So that means it's time to bring in the expert from William Hill, Alex Dunn, will be bringing us all the insight from the trading room, giving us the best prices. Alex, how do we find you on the eve of Ireland's marquee National Hunt Festival?
Excited. It's a lot to take in, isn't it, Punchestown? When you sort of go, right, where do I start? Where we start on the Tuesday and you go, right, I'm going to go through the grade ones, and then you go, well, hang on. Handicaps are quite competitive as well, and then you get Wednesday's deck. So yeah, very much looking forward to it, and the weather is glorious as well, which always helps.
It is, and we want to get out in it. So we'll get through this podcast, we'll do our study, and we'll bask in the sun when we can. Let's kick on into the naps, and in particular, I'll start with Paddy's nap, because Paddy Flood was with us earlier on. He napped Majborough in the William Hill Champion Chase, the feature on day one. Surely you're going to give us a good price about this.
5-2 currently for Majborough. Etait Temps the favourite for that race at 6-4, 15-8 Marine Nationale, and Majborough 5-2, 18s for Energumene, and Blood Destiny is 40-1 and the outsider of the bunch. The view from the trading room on this race is intriguing, because I guess the view is that on another day you could try and take on the big three in the market. That there's reasons to oppose all three of them, because jumping errors have been aplenty for the bulk of them throughout the course of the season, here and there. But Marine Nationale so far is the most popular one in the live market for that race. But be fascinated to see how that does play out with Etait Temps currently market leader at 6-4.
I'm glad that you said Marine Nationale is currently the most popular, because he's my nap. I'm going to go against Paddy, but I am going in the William Hill race, and I'm going to go Marine Nationale to go back to back. So I know you mentioned his price already, but considering William Hill are sponsoring the race and this is their podcast, surely you're going to just push it out a little bit more.
Do what I can, Jane. 15-8 is the price right now. What I would say is, I've said that Marine Nationale's been popular. 6-4 was available yesterday, so did ease out a little bit before being trimmed back in. Look, in these sort of races as well, you've got 4 Willie Mullins horses coming up against Barry Connell. It does end up being Mullins versus the world, doesn't it? And, well, Mullins normally wins. So I don't disagree with you, Jane, actually. I think Marine Nationale's got a good chance in that race if the jumping holds together. Let's hope it does on this occasion.
It's everybody else versus Willie Mullins is what this world is. Okay, Don, you have your nap lined up. Let's see what price we can get for you.
Yeah, it's the Labo in the 2 mile novices champion hurdle, the Grade 1 race on the Tuesday as well. So we'll know our fate pretty early. Yeah, I just think he's the up and coming horse. He's the one who could improve enough on his nice run the last day to put it up to the more established novices.
Yeah, it was a nice performance last time out. Labo's 5-1 currently with us here at William Hill for that one. El Kairos is the 2-1 market leader. 5s for Labo and Skylight Hustle. It's then 11-2 for Sober, who has attracted cash for Willie Mullins, that man again, and Paul Townend, and 7s and bigger the rest. But El Kairos is the market leader, but it was just an okay run at Cheltenham, wasn't it, from El Kairos? I think more was possibly expected. That said, a lot of Gordon Elliott's did disappoint that week, so maybe you are willing to draw a line through a lot of his runners from Cheltenham week. But yeah, Labo already attracting a bit of cash, actually. 7s into 5s, so you might be onto something there, Don.
Well, Alex, you know, we have friends in high places here at William Hill. So my moles are telling me that there's an epic boost every day of the Punchestown Festival. So if you're giving me 15-8 about Marine Nationale, or whatever you give about Labo, we're going to boost it. Okay, I'm just saying, Barry, you can have yours now.
Yeah, well, I like Kitzbuhel in the novice chase, the 3 mile novice chase on the Tuesday as well. So we'll all know our fate early in the week, but I thought his performance in the Brown Advisory at Cheltenham when jumping to his right, so I think he's going to be better suited by going right-handed, so I think there's potential for improvement on that Cheltenham form, and I have full respect for the form of all the horses who ran in the Willow Warm who come to face him here, but as Jane mentioned, I'd have him in the picture for a King George next season, where I can't necessarily say I would have had the Willow Warm form in it, so I think Kitzbuhel, to me, he could be the standout horse in the 3 mile novice chase on Tuesday. Yeah,
he's been pretty well found in the market as well. 11-8 now for Kitzbuhel. Opened up 6-4 when the market went live, already trimmed in. Predators Gold second in 6-1 with Kappa G Pike at 7s. The actual money in that race for a couple of big prices, 2 JP horses. Oscar's brother, who we saw running the Grand National, 11s into 17-2 and has had a fantastic season. And lovely hurling as well for Colin Murphy and Mark Walsh, who's had an interesting season without winning, has been running some nice quiet races and is 9-1. Right now in from a double figure price as well. So the 2 JP horses are bigger prices, but yeah, Kitzbuhel I expect to be pretty strong. It's currently 11-8 at the head of affairs.
And that wraps the Punchestown Festival preview. Thank you very much, Alex. We will sign you off there. Don't forget, if you're watching or listening, that if you are enjoying the Punchestown cards throughout the week and you have a couple of fancies that are in the same race, you can actually combine those fancies in a racing bet builder with William Hill. You can check that out. The options are online or on the app, and you can do it in the morning. of each day's racing and get building your bets. But that is very much it for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Paddy and Donn for joining us, to Barry for his insight across the National Hunt season. And this brings the curtain down on the National Hunt season. We'll see how it all unfolds over the next 5 days at the Punchestown Festival. But don't worry, if you are enjoying the William Hill podcast, you can continue to enjoy it throughout the flat season. We've got the small matter of the Guineas this weekend. It's always an unfortunate clash, and the Kentucky Derby for those of you who are actually interested in that. So keep an eye out for the next show. Follow us on Instagram, on all the social channels, and of course leave us a comment under the video on YouTube. As always, for all of the very best prices, if you haven't done so already, download the William Hill app, and of course please gamble responsibly. 18 plus. We shall see you all next week.